Good afternoon, everybody. We've got some Seattle Seahawks news here. At this point, it's kind of older news. This happened several hours ago, happened earlier this morning, and it was kind of expected. I kind of expected this to happen. I know that John Schneider said that he was hoping to be done with releasing players, but we do have one more in us, it looks like. As of earlier today, per Tom Pelissaro and many other sources on X, the Seahawks have parted ways with Nick Bellore, linebacker, fullback, and special teamer. So, Nick Bellore will be released on Monday, the start of legal tampering. So, technically, it hasn't happened yet, but it will happen. This was kind of the last piece that I wanted to fall in terms of releasing players. I know Nick Bellore is a little bit of a fan favorite. I know that he had value on special teams, but first of all, he was getting old. He's going to be 35 before too long here. So age is a concern, and special teams is a young man's game. So I wanted to move off of him so we could try to get younger at the special teams positions. And also, to me, Nick Bellore was a guy who was here mostly for Monday through Saturday. He wasn't so much here for Sunday. I mean, yes, he did provide some value on special teams, but linebacker, he barely ever played that, and fullback, he barely ever played that. So, to me, mostly you take a look at the money he was making versus his production on the field. And to me, he was a guy who was here for Monday through Saturday. He was a culture guy, he was a Pete Carroll guy, he was somebody that we liked to have around because he was a cool dude. There was leadership involved. It's not quite like Udonis Haslam, but it had some similarities to that. The bottom line is he was getting paid for things that had nothing to do with production on the football field. And I think that's okay. I don't have a problem with that. I think, for instance, Udonis Haslam had a very positive impact on the Miami Heat even when he wasn't playing. But we're flipping over the table this offseason. We got all new coaches except for Carl Scott. So a guy like Nick Bellore should probably go out with that old staff. So Bellore to me was a Carroll guy. He was maybe a Larry Izzo guy. Both those guys are gone, and he was making too much money. And as for the money part of the equation, the Seahawks are saving 2.85 million in cap space with this release. That is not insignificant. 2.85, you can do something with that. That is potentially the first year cap hit of a Colby Parkinson contract, depending on what he ends up doing in free agency. That could be the cap hit on a Will Dissly re-signing. I doubt it, granted, but if Will Dissly shops himself around and finds out that there isn't a lot of interest, then 2.85 might cover his first year cap hit if he comes back to Seattle. It could cover a lot of things, actually. You can do a decent amount with 2.85 million. So I think there's like 1.15 dead on Nick Bellore, which I can live with that. And as for the possibility of bringing him back on a reduced salary, which I guess is possible, if we do that, then you're probably going to have to give him something like 1.3 million. So then you would still save 1.5, which, hey, I'll take that as well. If you're telling me the only thing we lose is just a couple of days worth of having Nick Bellore on the roster and we get to save 1.5 million, then I'll sign up for that as well. If they feel like he still has value, then go for it. But I personally, I'm sure that the cliff is coming quickly for this guy. The cliff is already kind of come. He's 34, going on 35 here, and special teams is a young man's game typically. So he was a fun Seahawk. I liked having him around, but it didn't make very much sense to me to keep him around if you're going to flip over regimes. If Carroll was still here, I'm sure that Bellore would still be here. But that 2.85 million in cap space is just more valuable than Bellore is to me right now. So that's basically everybody that I thought we were going to release. I did think we were going to release Eskridge, but that's obviously not going to be the plan right now. Maybe he gets released in a few months if he's struggling in camp or he shows something we don't like in camp. But we restructured him, so the plan is clearly to keep him around. Lockett, we've committed to with the restructure. Gino, we've basically committed to with the restructure, unless we trade him, which even then, I mean, you've already kind of committed beyond trading him, I think, at this point. There really isn't a lot else you could look at. Maybe Jaron Reed, but I think it's more likely that that's not a consideration for the Seahawks at this point in time. Seattle currently has 44 players under contract, which is the fewest in the NFL. So you can see that there's some work to be done. And I believe as of the Nick Bellore release, the Seahawks have somewhere around 58 million in cap space, but it depends on the Lockett restructure. We need the details on that. We don't have them yet. I just checked right before I started recording this video. As of right now, we still do not know how much cap space Lockett freed up on that restructure. So we're going to have to just wait that out. Going to have to see how that actually looks on paper. But if it is 13 million freed up on Lockett, then we are talking about 58 million or so, which that's enough to do some damage. So that's about it on the release front. I expect we're done now. And the only other bit of Seahawks news, just a little bit of a tail end update here from Jordan Schultz on X. The first outside free agent visit for Seattle is Rayshawn Jenkins of formerly the Jacksonville Jaguars. So he is the first guy we're taking a look at here. Makes a lot of sense. Former Jacksonville safety. He's somebody who is eligible to start meeting with teams now because he was released. He's not going to have his contract expire on Wednesday. That's the distinction here. By the way, I think that some people are confused as to why some players are already visiting certain teams and other players aren't. It's because if you get released, your contract is up and you can go wherever you want to. But the players that haven't been released, their contracts expire on Wednesday. That's when they're actually free. So some players are able to start negotiating with other teams now because of that. And Rayshawn Jenkins is one of them. He was a pretty good player for Jacksonville. Highlight that stands out off the top of my head would be his game-winning touchdown against Dallas a couple of years ago in overtime. So he is a roughly starting caliber player at this point. Not somebody I talked about in the offseason, but going to be a target along with many, many, many other safeties, I'm sure, because we need them. We do not have safeties on this roster right now. We have basically one, and there's intense debate on the internet over whether or not he's even good. Julian Love. Some people think he's good. Some people think he's really not. But yeah, that's the main update we have right now. But happy trails to Nick Bellore. It was fun. He did provide value on special teams. There's no doubt about that. He was a really good special teamer. But at his age, I think it just made sense to start turning things over a little bit. We've got some guys on this team who could be really good special teamers, and we got to start finding out about them by actually getting them on the field. Jarek Reed, I know he's coming off an ACL tear and might not be ready for the start of the season, but Jarek Reed, I think, looked like our best special teamer before he got hurt. So that's a guy who could take over for Bellore. There are going to be other guys as well who emerge, guys that we can pick up for a fraction of the cost. Like, if you replace Nick Bellore with a UDFA, you are saving over $2 million on that spot. And that $2 million is going to help you go do something else. All right, so I'll see you guys later. Go Hawks. That is the latest from the Seattle Seahawks camp. Things are moving around this league constantly right now, but that is mainly what is going on in Seattle. All right. I'll be on Twitch later. There will be another video upload a little bit later today. See you guys, and go Hawks. And, yep, happy trails, Nick Bellore.